Carey Heller.
And I'm Hope Heller.
And today we're going to talk to you about how to build a distance learning environment.
Hi, so let me just start by saying that this is a crazy time. Whoever thought they were going to have a classroom in their house? Most of us never envisioned virtual school or homeschool, or trying to navigate that with full-time jobs or their small kids at home. So a lot of this is survival mode, and a lot of this is figuring out what works best. For me, I spent a lot of time sort of going over and over how we would make this work and what it was going to look like, and quite honestly having a lot of sort of that mom guilt about my 5-year-old not having the kindergarten experience that was our normal. And so I tried to harness that energy into finding a learning space. Most people aren't going to have time to do that. So I want people to remember that this is not the end all be all, and they're simple spaces. But I just wanted to show a few things and some things to think about and how we thought about setting up this space. The first thing is finding a room that works. I don't know about everyone else, but we didn't have the perfect quiet room that was easily accessible to everything. What we did have was a dining room that was used as a playroom because we have small children, and so we needed a playroom more than we needed a formal dining room. So I took the toys out of the formal dining room and made it our schoolroom. Now, when I thought about this, there were a couple pieces. We have a 2.5-year-old also. So I needed a space that was on the main level, that was off the kitchen, that was off of another room where an adult would be taking care of our younger son. So it had to be somewhat open, but it also needed to be its own inclusive space. So that's why this dining room worked for us. Some of this was trial and error. I wanted a space that my 5-year-old had that was his own desk, where he could have that space for school and computer. But I also wanted to have a space where an adult could sit with my 5-year-old and do work with him, but then also have the space to sit the 2.5-year-old down at the same time and be able to do an art project with him or flip through a book with him or something else like that. So I started out with a round table in the middle. And the idea is that one of my kids can be sitting here and one of my kids can be sitting over here, and an adult can be in the middle, sort of navigating the two. Whether or not that works in reality, only time will tell. But that was the thought process. And then if you come over here, I have the desk that we set up that is my son's kindergarten desk. I have bins here that are his math books so that he can easily get them and reach them when he's asked for it. I have his reading books that he was asked to have. I have them in bins. And then he really likes time and calendars, and because they're going to do that every morning, he and I picked out some different calendars we could put in the space along with days of the week and time. And then we picked out the space posters just because he likes those. One of the things we learned in the spring was trying to keep up with all the printing and what papers were where and what for what days. Started to end up in messy piles on our kitchen counter. Don't know if anyone else had that issue. So I found a hanging file holder that I just hung with tacks on the wall, and that way if there are days that we need to print stuff or other things, I can just label the folders and put them up that way. This desk was my first mistake, and it was what I originally picked out for my son, and then very quickly came to realize that it was too high, because then I ran into a problem of finding seating that was comfortable for him. And so we did have to replace it with a shorter desk. What this desk does allow is it allows, when there needs to be a teleworking adult in the room, to have a space to sit also, for the days that we do need to sit with him. So that's this corner. And then the other one thing I wanted to show you is with his supplies, I tried to find a fun way to make his supplies accessible. These are little bags that I sewed that he really liked, that we just hung on the wall. And he's got his crayons, he's got his pencil and his marker and his eraser. He's got his scissors and his glue, and then these are his movement cards. So when they have 5-minute breaks or 10-minute breaks, he doesn't have to think about what activity he's going to do. He just goes in and he pulls a card and it says 10 jumping jacks. So he just does his 10 jumping jacks, goes to the bathroom, gets a drink of water, and then gets back to the table. The other piece of that I wanted to mention is timers. You can get different types of timers on Amazon, all different kinds. We happen to have some of these. So this is what we used. There's a 5-minute one, a 10-minute one, and a 15-minute one. So even though his teacher on the computer sets a timer, this lets him also have another visual, and it also gives him the opportunity to choose his own, to watch the timer for himself and feel like he's being a little bit responsible for his time. And then for our 2.5-year-old, we wanted to give him a little space also to feel like he had his own. So he picked out some of his own posters, and then he has his own little table here for activities. And then I just like the posters. I wanted something that felt fun and felt like a classroom. So we have our math wall here. I tried to mix it with posters geared more towards my 2-year-old, and then a poster more towards my 5-year-old. I'm not a kindergarten teacher. These posters, they may say you're not what's right, but I just was trying to have fun with it. And then this is our reading wall, which is really just my shameless love of Dr. Seuss and wanting to have an excuse to add Dr. Seuss into the room. So I found these really fun Dr. Seuss reading posters and made this our reading wall. So we have the different alphabets and the different consonants and vowels and blending ones. And then we have the bookshelf down here and a Yogi Bo that we've had forever that make this our reading corner. And this is something that we've always had that I just incorporated back into the room. And so I tried to balance having some fun stuff to make it feel a little bit like a classroom, with also trying to balance not having too much in it. But again, I think everything's different. We're a week in and I've already identified areas that aren't perfect and where we've had to make changes. And like I said, most people don't have time to do this. This is how I channeled my feelings about all of this and getting kids ready and wanting to make it fun and exciting and creative. But also my boys had fun decorating with me, and it was a nice activity to get them excited about school and to get us excited about school. And that's our classroom.
All right, so in terms of thinking about distance learning, another crucial thing is to think about if you have a child or teen that has a hard time sitting still. I mean, for many of us, whether you're a child or an adult, it can be hard sitting in front of a computer a good part of the day. Certainly breaks are really important. The other thing that can be really helpful is to think about how to harness fidgeting if you're someone or you have a child or teen that has a hard time sitting still. So the key thing with any sort of fidget is that you want to be able to maintain full eye contact with what's going on. So for example, if you have, I'm sure a lot of you have heard of a fidget spinner, which are pretty much banned as much from any school, but if let's say I'm fidgeting with this, if I'm looking at this, I really have no idea what's going on around me visually. And so the key is whether you're doing it with your feet or your hands, to maintain full eye contact while you're doing. So with the feet fidgets, the idea is you can basically move a little bit. So with this, for example, if let's say I were sitting down, I can basically just kind of squish on this a little bit and It allows me to kind of get a little bit of movement in, but my whole upper body can stay still, which is great because whether I'm actually standing at a desk or sitting, I'm this part's still, so it's not going to be a huge issue on video. Whereas if you have a child that's this or doing that on video, it's a lot harder to stay focused, and it's probably they distract themselves, they may distract the classmates. Other things you can also do are this is called a balance board. And so if you're sitting down, what you can do is, or actually if you have a standing desk, same thing where you can balance. It gives you a little bit of movement in, but still maintains the upper body still staying pretty still. And these are foot pedals. These are actually pretty similar to the one I mentioned there. Those are inflatable. These click back and forth. These are actually great if, at some point in school we're trying to stay in person, and especially in elementary school where you don't move classes that often, they actually fold, so they're pretty compact. These are called kick bands. A lot of you probably see these in schools. These are pretty standard. You attach it to a chair, you hold it out, and basically you put your feet on it and pull back or push up, and it gives some movement. One or two other ideas are, so if you follow me over here. So let's think about the chairs. So here we have a wobble seat. So what's really cool about these is that you can sit, but they kind of have a little bit of built-in movement. So see how I'm still sitting, I almost have to move to kind of keep it still. And so it actually works out really well. Another idea is a yoga ball chair. And they make these in all sorts of different sizes. So clearly we have a child version right here. I have my own adult version right here. And it's great because you can sit on it. You get some movement in, but not so much that you're wiggling all over the place. Whereas if you stuck a lot of kids on a yoga ball, pretty much they may roll around the room. I mean, I have a yoga ball in my office when things are normal, and a lot of times it's hard for people to sit still on them. So I can certainly understand, well, this is really helpful because you get the best benefit of a yoga ball while also being able to have it contained. I would say one final thing I want to show you is over here. So thinking about this as the desk, which obviously it is a desk, but in terms of how to harness fidgeting. So over here, we have a wiggle cushion. So what's interesting is there are a couple different things you can do with it. So one thing is you can actually put it on a chair like this, and so you sit on it, and so it gives a little bit of movement, but you kind of have to almost have a little bit of movement to hold it still, which in turn can be great because then the rest of your body, such as the upper half, which is on screen, is still holding still. The other thing also, or you can also, it's flexible, so you can also put it on the floor. And then the child puts their feet right here and moves a little bit while their upper body stays still. So there's really a lot you can do to harness fidgeting, which in turn can really improve focus. But in general, aside from improving focus, a lot of times it'll also increase motivation to keep participating in school and help kids to feel better. Because for a child or teen that can't sit still, it can be incredibly painful to have to sit there hour after hour, even with some breaks participating in online school, but having these types of things can make a world of difference.